Welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. We were going to take a trip all around the state, and we're going to start it with a bonus. Now, we'll check out all the fishing in Florida and see where the fish have moved to. Boy, I tell you what, I found a bunch of cobia over the weekend. It's looking really good for the start of the spring migration. The weather's been kind of up and down. The guys up in Jacksonville have struggled a little bit. Unprecedented numbers of barracuda offshore, but we'll hear all about that, I'm sure. But first, it's indeed my pleasure to welcome our new action spotter from, how about this, Costa Rica, no doubt, huh? From Nosara, does that work? Let's welcome Craig Sutton. Good morning. How we doing, Cap?
Good, Captain Ricky. Doing real well.
Good, good. Have you talked to your boys down in Nosara this week?
Oh, yeah. We get our pictures every night after they get off the boat. Our guys are real good about that. Of course, we upload every one of those pictures to the blog so people can see the latest catches in full color.
How'd they do this week?
They've been good, Ricky. Lots and lots of sails, 3, 4, 5 miles off the beach. Good numbers of sails, and they're all decent size. They're all that 100 to about 150-pound fish, and a few yellowfin mixed in with them, too. Which is nothing wrong with taking a little yellowfin meat home at night.
Oh, no.
And last week we didn't have any big Dorado, but a few nice Dorado this week. Not any 45-plus pounders, but 2 or 3 of them on the Wonder that were in that high 30, which is a real nice fish. They look like they're 40 or 50-pound fish, but they're, like 36, 38-pound, but a good fish.
I tell you right now, Craig, if you and I go fishing and you've got a 50 and I've got a 30, I'll trade you. I like eating those fish before they get all that big.
Well, unfortunately for me, I haven't eaten that many big ones. I've had a couple of them in that high 40s, but I'd like to catch one first and then to worry about eating.
I'm with you on that. That's fantastic. Tell me how people can get a hold of you if they want to go to a place that I certainly thoroughly enjoy and everybody I talk to loves, and that's Nosara Paradise Rentals.
They can get me at Craig@fishingnosara.com or 904-591-2161.
We got it. All right. You tell that pretty girl with you that I said goodnight and I love her dearly. We'll talk with you next week, Craig.
Ricky, I send you a big hug. I'll bless you. Don't worry. I will let you know.
Okay. All right, guys. Y'all have a great night. We'll talk with you next week. All right. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum. By Phoenix Rods. By Nosara Paradise Rentals. And by Young Boats. You want the best in flat, spay, and offshore hybrid boats? Check out youngboats.com. We're going to get it started up in the Northeast with our good buddy David Voorhees. Good evening, David. How are you?
Hey, Cam Ricky, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Tell me what's going on in Northeast Florida.
I don't really have a lot to report as far as the offshore scene goes. Heard from Robert Johnson on the Jody Land. It seems like they had a day of barracuda attacks. You're hearing a few guys doing okay on the bottom, but the weather's just hasn't been cooperating for these offshore guys. They haven't been able to get out much this week. But on the other hand, when the weather's usually bad offshore, a lot of people tend to go inshore, and the inshore fishing, Rick, has been absolutely on fire. The weather has been a roller coaster lately. We've had 80-degree weather, and then we turn around and we've got horrible weather. We've got rain. We've had wind. We've had every condition you can imagine. But the inshore red fishing has absolutely been on fire. Thank God for redfish, because I'm telling you, it's been my bread and butter for many years. And I get a lot of people who are unable to go offshore, but they would love to go inshore and catch a 27, 28, 32-inch red. And what I really like about what's been going on this past week on the inshore scene is it's been real difficult for me to come up with a pattern. And I know you're going to say, well, what's good about that? Well, it forces me to go from deep water to shallow water to flat. I'm mixing it up. I'm doing a little bit of everything, and I'm finding fish up on the shallows at the high outgoing tide. I'm finding fish in the deep water at the low tide. So I'm finding fish, but this time of year, I'm telling you, you really have to work hard at it. And don't stay in one spot for very long. If you go to a spot and you're not catching anything, or you might catch one fish or two fish, and you're thinking, wow, we're going to catch them, we're going to get on them, man, don't think that, because I'm telling you, this week I saw so many days that were one and done. You catch one fish, maybe two, and you move to your next spot. I don't know if they spook up. A lot of us think just they get spooky in this clear water. In the inshore, the water's been really beautiful, Ricky. I mean, it has been clear with this rain we've got. I thought for sure it was going to be muddied up. We went out there yesterday, and in a lot of the places I fished, the water was absolutely gorgeous.
Huh. That's a real good thing. I mean, that's something that's haunted us ever since the dredging project started up there a while. It's been dirty water.
It has. And I've been sort of trying to stay further away from the St. Johns River, either north, way up almost to Nassau Sound, or way south around JTB, all the way down to Palm Valley and Pine Island in that area to avoid that muddy water. But there's been plenty of fish. One thing I have seen this week, a really strong pickup, is of the yellowmouth trout. We've cleaned several this week, and every one we've cleaned has been fat with roe. They're all rowed up. They're in here spawning. Talked to the Marine Patrol officer yesterday. He said, yeah, this is the time of year where these yellowmouth trout come in to spawn a lot earlier than what the speckled trout or the spotted trout do.
Huh.
So if you get on an area and you're catching a few yellowmouth, work that area pretty hard, and you're going to find quite a few yellowmouth. And some decent size.
How big a yellowmouth have you seen? Because I know a big yellowmouth is not the same thing as a big speckled trout.
No, it's not. But, if you get a 15 incher, that's a nice one for me.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and there's no slot limit until you get up into Nassau Sound. In the Northeast Florida, we don't have a slot limit on the trout, or we don't have a purse limit. But when you get past the Nassau Sound, that changes. So if you're fishing up in Nassau, you better pay attention to the laws, because things change up there for some reason. Yep. And that sort of helps when we're not getting the speckled trout, we're not getting the flounder like we'd like to see, and, you're only allowed to keep 2 redfish. Sometimes catching 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 yellowmouth trout, it sort of sweetens the pot to people who like to bring fish home to eat.
Excellent.
Excellent. Now, as far as sheephead, I've been talking to the guys every week. I keep expecting to hear good sheephead report. It hasn't happened yet. Talked to one guy yesterday. He's a good fisherman, good sheephead fisherman, and he hits all the bridges. And he had 4 or 5 the other day. That was a day of fishing, and that's not great numbers, is it, Rick?
No, it's not, David, and I think they're taking a break. I think the full moon in March, they're going to be wide open. The spawn is coming for them, and if we see it, as we usually do in March, which you can never count on anything, but if we see it the way it usually is in March, I think there'll be plenty of sheephead. Certainly the early indication, the fall run, will tell us that we should be in good shape for them. So, David, we got to get moving around the state. Let people know how they can get a hold of you.
Well, they can contact me at Backwater Fishing Adventures, or they can give me a call, 904-708-8915. And I'm telling you, I had some people call me this week. They want to come down this week. And I said, just wait another week. This weather's going to be good. And I'm so glad you mentioned the full moon, because that full moon has been key to the really good fishing. This time of year, for some reason, you start fishing around that full moon, and it's so much better than even the new moon or the in-between moon phases.
Couldn't agree with you more, Cap. Thank you so much, David. We'll talk with you next week.
All right, Rick.
Our thanks to Captain David Voorhees for a great Northeast Florida report, where it seems like the barracuda have taken over the ocean, but inshore, thank God for redfish. They're biting good. Let's move on down to the East Central and talk with our buddy Jim Ross, who I just saw at the boat show. How are you, Jimmy?
I'm doing great. We had a fun time sitting around at that Yamaha tent looking at all the great products that Yamaha builds.
We did. I wasn't going to bring it up, Jim, but you and I have known each other, over 20 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, and I hadn't seen you in a while. Jim, you got a little gray in that hair.
I know. Hey, not only that, the six-pack's a pony keg now.
Jim, you gained a pound or 2.
Yeah.
How can I be so dashingly handsome and still look 30 years old? And you're going to hell. I don't know what's going on with you.
You're just living right. Buddy.
That's it.
You're living right.
That's it. That's exactly right. Jim, tell me about the fishing in East Central Florida.
Captain Glenn Austin reports that the redfish are still doing pretty good down at the Sebastian Inlet. He's finding that the daytime tides, especially the incoming tides, live bait seems to be critical. Is the only way you're going to get a bite.
Live bait for you this time of year means what?
Croakers and pinfish, mainly.
Okay, thank you.
We do have a few pilchers, though, because we've got the swarming trend. there's some filters filling up in the Wabasso through Grant area of the river, and you can actually jig them. Also on the incoming tide, the greenies pushing inside of the inlet as well, so you can sabiki those up.
All right. What else have you seen or heard?
Outgoing tide, especially at night, flare hawks still just king of the outgoing nighttime bite. And then there's big Rapala X-Rap 14s, and there's also a custom lure that the guys are throwing out, a lip diving plug with a mullet type of a silhouette. At night is working very well on the outgoing tides.
I see. Okay. Are there any tarpon or is it all snook?
No, it's mainly those oversized redfish.
Okay.
32, 34-inch fish up to 48-inch fish.
I see.
There are some snook. There's a few snook that are starting to bite with this warming trend. I haven't heard of any tarpon, but it would not surprise me that if they don't show up just any day now, because we're having unusually warm weather for February. The other thing that's pretty interesting is the number of sailfish that we've got throughout the region. They're not everywhere, but you'll get a pot of them here and a pot of them there, and they're moving around from day to day. So anywhere over the last 3 or 4 days, from Sebastian up to Ponce, I've talked with a couple of different captains, and they've all said at one point in time or another, hey, there's some sailfish showing up in our area. So it's one of those things that if you like catching sailfish, this is a pretty good time to get out there. And with those 3 to 5 foot seas that we've had over the weekend and then into the first part of this week, hopefully the guys and gals will be able to get out there and take advantage of that. No real dolphin action to speak of, a couple of wahoo and a couple of blackfin.
Well, I tell you what, you better be thankful for it. Our number one sailfish boat went out the other day to get him and put his first spread out. And an hour and a half later, he had fed 75 barracuda.
Holy cow.
So I am sending all those barracuda your way, and I expect some sailfish back in return.
You know, that just doesn't seem like a fair trade to me.
Oh, it's fine with me. I don't have any problem with it at all.
I'm going to need some wire leader and some tube lures as part of that deal.
I'll bet you'll get a bite. Are you hearing anything back in the lagoon at all? Is it quiet there?
The main thing right now is black drum. They're still on the outer bars, cucumber bar, whale tail, tournament bar, false channel bar, those outside drop-offs where it goes from a foot or two down to 4 or 5 feet. That's where you're going to find the schools of fish. The smaller fish are roaming around in the back, real far back areas, like in the back of Barracuda Bay, in the back of Van Slough, Pardon Slough, Orvis Cove, Cucumber, and Turtle Pen. Way back in there, really skinny water right now. They're a little touchy when they get back there, but peeled shrimp or sand flea seems to be the best way to get those shallower fish. The ones on the outside, they're bigger, and they're gonna eat crabs. You can just cut a piece of chunk crab up and throw it out there, and they will find it.
Now, I'm certain that they're sight fishing the big fish. Are they sight fishing the little ones too, or just is that kind of a
because
way?
No, they're in like 6 to 12 inches of water, and when a black drum moves in that shallow water, you can definitely see them. The thing about them is redfish typically move in a straight line or sort of a curve. Black drum don't do that. If they're moving along and they don't know that anything is wrong yet, to their knowledge, they'll kind of move in a straight line, and they'll tail, and they'll tip, and they'll do little things like that. The second that they know you're there, they're not sure where you are, but they go into what I call sprayed roach mode.
Yep, I know what that means.
They start twirling, and they make these circles, and they twirl, and they pump up, and they run, and then they settle, and they twirl back the other way. They keep twirling enough that when they finally find you again, they bump off of you and run away. And so you're actually back poling with the push pole. When they start twirling and making that twirl in towards you, a lot of guys will make the mistake. They'll continue casting a fish. The captain of the boat, or the guy that's on the push pole, needs to be aware of that fact. And when the black drum are coming towards them, he needs to actually be pushing the boat backwards to get the boat away from them so they don't get close enough to bump into you again, and see you, and then run off and do that all over again. Because that seems to be a learned behavior that they just consistently do, and it will frustrate the you-know-what out of you. Because once they start that, the second they bump back into you again, it gets worse. And then they bump back into you again, and it gets worse. And then they start splitting and fragmenting, and the school goes from 50 or 60 or 80 fish down to 20 little fish in 4 or 5 pods. And then they're all doing it. It just turns into this chaotic situation on the flat in front of you, and you really can't do anything other than just back out of there and let them settle back in.
I'll be darned. That's a great tip. Jimmy, we can't thank you enough. We're going to talk with you next week, okay?
I'm looking forward to it, Rick.
Thank you, buddy. Captain Jim Ross with our East Central report, where he said, be careful when you're in the lagoon spotting drum. All right, now we're going to move on down to Stewart and check in with our buddy John Earhart. Oh, my goodness, they should have some fish going on offshore there. Let's see what happens. Captain John Earhart, what's going on, sir?
Let's talk offshore first. Got to get offshore on Friday and Saturday, and I got to tell you, the cobia fishing is just absolutely phenomenal right now. It looks like we're going to have some good weather this coming week. If you got a chance to get out there and you got some live baits or some cobia jigs, I'd definitely take full advantage of some great cobia fishing right now. We were fortunate enough to limit out in about 30 minutes of fishing, and that's the kind of cobia fishing I like to do. Get out there, you get your limit quick, head offshore and go target some mahi.
Hey, let me ask you a question. And you told me that. You said if you could pick 1 week a year, it'd be right around here. And it's a little earlier than you had predicted, but that's the kind of fishing I know that you love to do. Now, on your boat, when you're in federal waters, are you keeping 2 per person?
Yeah, and that is kind of a gray area, so you got to be careful. If you're in state waters, you're only allowed 1 a person. But if you're in federal waters, you're allowed 2 a person. But you can't have your federal limit and be fishing in state waters. It doesn't matter if you caught them in federal waters. If you're fishing in state waters and the game warden pulls you over, you better be a real good talker or you can expect a ticket.
I got to tell you, John, I understand what you're doing, but you can take it from an old man that was here when the cobia were really here, which was in the late 70s, early 80s. I support that 1 fish per person, and if I had my way, I think that's where we'd go in state and federal.
Yeah, I mean, if you really need more than 1 cobia a person, I mean, I think you're being a little bit greedy, but if I'm out in federal waters and those things are swimming around the boat, I'm certainly going to let my client keep 2 apiece if he wants to.
That's their right, and generally speaking, when I talk to you, you're not listening to the voice of a client that just drove down here from Minnesota to catch fish to take home. I understand that, believe me.
Yeah. So it's been pretty good fishing. If you get a chance to get out there, you want to have some good offshore fishing. I'd try for cobia first thing in the morning and then maybe do a little trolling for some mahi and sailfish. The snapper fishing's been pretty good on the 6 and the 8 mile reef. A lot of lane snappers have pushed in. They're getting ready to spawn. So if you want to take advantage of a bunch of smaller snappers that are really good eating, the lane snapper fishing's been excellent using chicken rigs with cut mullet and cut squid.
John, before we go inshore, what are you targeting the cobia with?
This week I'm using live greenies, cobia jigs, the spool tech lures, even big diving plugs, but my bait of choice would be a live greenie with like a 3/4 ounce lead and about a 6 to 9/0 hook.
Gotcha. Okay, just carry it down, get it down below the surface good, and let them have it, huh?
Yep. I mean, if they're right there on the surface, you obviously don't want to have a lead on there.
Sure.
But if you're not seeing them, get your bait a little further down in the water column, you're going to get those big cobias.
Gotcha. All right, what are you seeing inshore, John?
Did a half day inshore today. The fishing was a little slower on average. The water was a little chalky, but we did manage to catch a bunch of sheep's head, 2 redfish. Been a lot of snook around. Snook season's open, so we are catching some keepers. It's not great snook fishing right now, but we are catching 4 to 10 fish a trip. It's enough to keep you active, and if you're lucky enough, you'll bring one home to eat.
Perfect. John, thank you so much for your report. We appreciate it. We'll look forward to talking to you next week, okay?
Yeah, hopefully it's going to get better, and I'll report some big mahis.
All right, John, thank you so much. Our thanks to Captain John Earhart for a great report out of Stewart, Florida, where he said the cobia are wide open. And I got to tell you, I just drove up from Key West this morning. What a thrill for me. I got to spend the last 2 days with R.T. Trossett, who everybody knows is a fabulous guide in the Keys. I can report that the population of cobia down there right now is very good. So maybe we're off to a better season, but let's take a trip on south. We'll check in and find out what's happening in Miami. Captain Alan Sherman, are you with me?
I am, Rick. How you doing?
Oh,
you recovered from the boat show?
Oh, boy, do you have an iPhone?
I do now, but I'm not using it yet because it's not programmed.
Okay, doggone it, because I wanted to see if you could beat 18,993 steps in one day.
Well, not today I can.
Alan, now keep in mind, you and I have known each other for 25 years. My steps ain't real big. You know that, right?
Well, you know mine are, though.
I know they are. So funny because Blair and I Blair Wickstrom from Florida Sportsman and I worked those boat shows together pretty much, and we're always comparing iPhones when we get home. And I'm like 18,900, and he's like 12,700. And I'm like, boss, I need a raise. Come on, I'm working twice as hard as you are.
Wow, that's a lot of walking. I honestly did not get to see hardly any of the show and only had an hour to walk around and talk to a few people, but there were a lot of people, a lot of new stuff coming out, or it already is out, so it was pretty exciting.
Let me tell you something, Alan. 20 years ago, I said, well, electronics can't get any better, so, we've gotten as good as we can get. Holy smokes, this side scan stuff and the C mapping and all, it's incredible.
I know. That Minn Kota booth, I mean, they have an 87-inch trolling motor. 87 inches.
Yeah.
That's gigantic.
Yeah.
It took them a long time to perfect the shaft so that it would hold up under a current or pressure, but they got it, and it's amazing. It's built for the big boats, for the 25 to 34 footers, and you're going to start seeing a lot of these guys pushing a button and anchoring their boats without using an anchor or a chain.
You know you are. Tell me what's going on with your fishing.
All right, so we haven't seen any big numbers of cobias around. There's always a few on the artificial reefs and the wrecks this time of the year. If the water is nice and clear, you'll see them following some rays. And we've had some calm weather a couple of days. I know on Monday it was beautiful. I was in the bay, and you know who was fishing right next to me in the bay?
No.
Captain Bouncer Smith,
hey,
in that great big boat of his.
Let me tell you something, okay? I checked off a bucket list item this week. Alan, have never made a lot of money in the outdoors business, as you can well understand.
Of course I can.
I have now fished with Ray Rocher, Bouncer Smith, and R.T. Trossett, among 1,000 other great guys. But does it get any better than those three?
It really doesn't. And that had to have been an unbelievable, laughing all day fishing trip. I saw the picture of the mutton snapper you caught. That was the only picture. Was that the only fish that was caught?
Oh, heavens no. Oh,
I don't think so.
Buddy, I heard 3 or 4 times yesterday we were catching muttons and the big jack crevalle moved in. And I mean the ugly ones. I mean the ones that got weeds growing off of them. They're so old and they weigh so much. And 2 or 3 times I called the mate over and I said, here, take this rod. Something's wrong with the reel. The handle won't turn. he didn't fall for that for too long.
No, he's heard that before.
Yeah, I'm
those
sure.
Crevalles will beat you up.
Woo! I mean, we just had a great time.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Anyway, we did well in the bay and catching undersized mutton snappers, but lots of them. Barracudas, undersized red groupers. A Bouncer sent me a picture of a red grouper that they caught yesterday when they were out in the ocean. They caught it in about 135 feet, and that fish looked to be about 20 pounds. It was a giant. At any rate, we had plenty of action all day in the bay. The first 2 baits in the water hooked up 2 of the biggest fish of the day, and I had some young kids on the boat. One kid fought his for what seemed like 10 minutes, only for it to get him in the bottom and break him off. And then the other kid, Marco, he had a fish on double that time, and I think a shark got it.
Oh, no.
No. But they had a blast catching, I think, 8 different kinds of fish and at least 30 or 40 fish in the day. There's been a few mackerel in the bay, a few bluefish. I haven't really hit them too much. It was so rough from all the boat traffic over the weekend with the boat show. But the offshore guys, they're still struggling out there. We can't seem to get 3 or 4 days of the same kind of weather. And I understand there's another big front coming through for the weekend, and they're talking about 25 to 30 mile an hour winds for the weekend.
Gee
so, that makes it tough. I don't know, you guys never see that kind of weather, or do you?
Oh, heck yes. Oh, my goodness, yes. We haven't put together 2 days in a row to fish up here in Jacksonville since I don't know when. I was just so blessed to have able to spend 2 days with RT on a calm ocean. We were 93. We were 93 miles from the dock yesterday on one of his wrecks with all his pet fish, and it was just it was living in an aquarium. It was as much fun as you could have. Hey, Alan, I got a question for you. I know you started out as a party boat captain. So how long have you been in the fishing?
I started out as a party boat mate.
Right.
And
That's
I
what
did that for quite a while.
I know you worked with Wayne Kahn for a while on the party boats. You ever been scared?
I have. Probably more times than I can remember. Just a couple of real quick ones. I can remember a night fishing on the party boats well, not fishing, but being the mate for Wayne on the party boats, and we were hitting a spot where the gag groupers spawn. And a guy hooked up on a fish, and he's working it up, and we're waiting to see it. We're in about 80, 90 feet of water, so it took a little bit for the guy to get the fish up to where you could see what it was. And we were pretty sure it was a grouper. And as we're staring at the water, this huge glow comes towards us. And this was a shark. I don't know how big it was, but one bite and the whole grouper was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that at night, the glow of that thing, that scared the crap out of me. Other than that, I had a lightning bolt strike over my head once, shut off all my electronics, made my hair stand up. That was pretty scary. And then here's the coolest one. Again, when I was a mate, this was on the Popeye at night, flat calm night, maybe 20 people in the boat, anchored, 80 feet of water, got a stiff south current, and there's a splash up on the bow. Everybody turns to see who's got this fish on, and floating right by us is one of our customers. The guy jumped in the water, tried to commit suicide.
Oh, no.
Now, like right out of some movie, can't even understand how this happens. Here comes this sailboat right down the side of us, grabbed the guy's arms, and yanked him into the boat. Where the guy came from, the sailboat, I have no idea. I know I had my shirt off, my shoes off. I was getting ready to jump in the water with a life preserver. And here it was like right out of some World War II movie where they grabbed the guys and pulled them right into the boat.
Wow.
Got them back to the dock and everything was cool. But that was pretty scary. So 3 different times, and there's probably been 100 of them just like that.
Wow. Isn't that something? I just,
yes.
Man, that would send shivers down your spine right there now. That's a scary one. I think the scariest quick one I can tell you one that scared me so bad I didn't talk for a day and a half, so you know how scary that had to be.
Wow.
Because I rarely shut up. But
oh, yeah, right.
Alan, my buddy and I had paddled probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles in one of the old sit-in kayaks, the original kayaks. Remember those? We had a two-manner, and we thought that would be great for duck hunting. It was hovering right around 38, maybe 36 degrees. I mean, it was very, very cold. And we paddled about 2 miles to the place that we wanted to duck hunt. And we had just finished up, and we were loading up our decoys and everything, and a storm set in. And it dropped down to about 34 and started pouring. And I mean, we are desperately trying to get some wood together before it gets totally soaked. He was a better outdoorsman than I am. He was cooler than I was under pressure. And we got a fire lit, thank God. And we spent the night there waiting for the storm to subside. And it went on for till about 2:30 in the morning. And I knew because we had this big roaring fire going now, we were going to be okay. But I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? We were minutes away from not being able to get off of this island and dying out here. Wow. Because it was that cold.
Hypothermia and all that, yeah.
But fortunately,
that is scary, for sure.
Fortunately, the good Lord said, no, I'm not ready for you yet. I don't need you up here.
And that's a good thing, right?
You got it. Alan, thank you so much. Tell people how they can get a hold of you.
They can get me online at Get 'em Sport Fishing Charters, or you can call me at 786-436-2064. Tight lines.
Got it. Our thanks to Captain Alan Sherman and all of our action spotters. They are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum. By Phoenix Rods. By Nosara, Paradise Rentals, and by Young Boats. You want the finest in flats, bay, and hybrid offshore boats? You need to check out youngboats.com. All right, we're going to head on down south. I was just there this morning. I was just in Islamorada. Now I'm back in Jacksonville. But we need to find out what Juan Garcia's up to.
How you doing, Ray?
I'm doing excellent, my boy. I'm doing excellent.
That's good.
Tell me what's going on in Islamorada, Florida.
A lot of good things, man. You know how it is out here. There's always something to catch.
Yep, always something to catch in Islamorada. I just left Key West this morning fishing with my buddy Robert Trossett. You guys got a great fishery all through the Keys.
I know, right?
What's going on offshore?
The kingfish bite has been phenomenal lately. A lot of kingfish, fishing the wrecks. Great mutton snapper bite on the bottom. Amberjacks on the wrecks. If you're moving a little shallower, the yellowtail bite has been great at the edge of the reef. The patch reef fishing, I did a lot of that last couple of days, and it's been phenomenal as well. Mountain snapper, mangrove snapper, yellowtails, porgies, barracudas, you name it. A lot of fun for anybody that likes to catch fish.
Keeping the rods bent.
That's it.
Yep. Have you heard much on the offshore scene? You got any sailfish down there?
Yeah, the sailfish has been good. Some boats do better than others.
Sure.
But, that's usually common. But, if you go around the marinas at the end of the day, you're going to see plenty of flies flying up. So.
Okay, good deal. That sounds outstanding. Juan, what's your weather looking like coming into the midweek?
Well, the weekend, we're supposed to get this cold front coming on, I believe, Friday, Saturday. Temperatures are going to drop a little bit again, which I'm pretty happy with.
Mm-hmm.
Get a last bit of nice cold weather before the heat starts. But, we're getting into the spring mode here. Tarpon on the warmer days are showing up on the back country already. By the way, the bite on the back country has been phenomenal as well. And it's going to get even better this week with the lower tides in the morning.
Okay.
So easier to fish, yep.
When you say the backwater, you're talking flamingo, right? And you're saying we're going to have low tide early in the morning?
Yeah, these next couple of days, the low tide is going to be early in the morning. I usually like that. Last of the outgoing and the first of the incoming. Makes it a little better than when you have that high water first thing in the morning.
Good deal. All right, Cap, we certainly appreciate it. We're going to look forward to talking with you next week. Our thanks to Captain Juan Garcia for a great Alamorado report. God, their backcountry fishing seems to be so good. I mean, they're doing okay offshore. The weather's hampered them a lot, but all winter long, Juan Garcia says that the Flamingo area has just been full of fish. Let's move around a little bit to the west and check in with our buddy, Steve Dahl. Steve, are you with us?
I am. How you doing today, Rick?
I'm doing okay. I'm wondering if those Phoenix rods bent at all this week. Did that happen?
Yeah, they did.
There you go. Talk to me.
Well, we'll start offshore. We'll go into, we've been having some cobia sightings. They're here. And,
outstanding.
It's all nearshore stuff, not having to go far. These fish are probably sitting in 25 to 35 feet of water over most of our wrecks and reefs scattered throughout the 10,000 islands and actually up through Naples. Some of the Naples guys are getting them a little bit farther out too, and they're actually getting a little bit bigger. The farther out you go, you get in that 45, 50 foot range, you start to see some fish in the upper 30 inch class, lower 40 inch class. So super willing to bite. This has been a really good past week. Lots of different catches, lots of those fish in that lower 30 inch range, right in that size limit range, are super, super aggressive. They're getting fired up, coming up to the boat. You can pretty much pitch anything right at them. We've been playing with just regular paddle tail swim baits that you would use for redfish and snook, and they've been readily eating them, which is great because the nearshore wrecks and reefs are doing fantastic. You don't really have to fly out to the deeper depths. We're getting some big, big sheepshead like we've been talking about. Spanish mackerel are here, bonita are in the mix. Lots of grunts. Definitely seeing some mangrove snapper, some lane snapper are running on the high side. We're getting tons of small muttons. Can't keep them, but it is action-oriented types of trips. So, Sunday, I'll give you a perfect example. We had a 2-boat trip out of Naples, 8 guys, in about 5 hours. We burned through 750 shrimp, a box of threadfins, and 2 things of squid.
How good
it's
is
like
that? How good is that?
It doesn't get any better than that. It's classic wintertime fishing in Southwest Florida, so we're super happy about that. The red grouper are definitely around, but you're going to have to get in that 90 to 100 foot range for sure. Casual women are not, no problem. So if you can find that 90 to 100 foot range, it seems that, the wrecks and reefs aren't doing as well as ledges. Ledges have definitely been holding concentrations of fish. And I'm talking about subtle ledges, 2-3 foot drops. They're stacked up in there. If you're willing to make the commute, or you got 5 other buddies you want to split the gas bill and make that run, you're going to have some red grouper waiting for you. So the inshore side, it's hit or miss right now. I mean, the reds are definitely spread out a little bit, and the snook are a little confused. They don't know what's going on with this warm weather. It hit 87 here today in Naples.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's really throwing everything back a little bit. I like the cold fronts a little bit this time of year because it really gets that water temperature down. But now these fish are starting to get a little confused in the backcountry, and they don't know if they're coming or going.
Well, you got to think about it this way. We're always confused. So shouldn't they be confused at least every now and then?
Oh, yeah. No, we feeling what we feel at this point, so that's good.
That's right. Steve, I've got a dilemma.
Okay.
I spent the last 2 days with one Captain Robert Trossett. Steve, do we do the cobia tonight and save the mutton? Or do we eat mutton tonight and save the cobia? I don't know.
Man, how about you just invite some folks over and have both?
Come on up, brother. Come on up. We'll do it to it.
You read between the lines. That was an invitation for myself.
What a great thrill it was to spend time with Robert. Hey, let me ask you a question. And RT and I got to talking about that this week. You've been on the water a lot of years. You ever been scared?
Yeah, a couple times.
I mean, really scared.
No, I mean, where I didn't think I was coming home twice. And that's what I call really scared. I can deal with a lot out on the water. And I think all of us have a little bit of a threshold for bad weather, ominous situations, things like that. But twice, at the time I was a young buck on Lake Erie. You know anything about Lake Erie? If there's a 5-mile-an-hour wind, there's 3-footers out there.
Right.
Lake Erie is one of the shallowest of the Great Lakes, and that lake can kick up at a minute's notice. And it was the first time I was ever legitimately in waves that were legit 8 to 10s, and I was in a Ranger 690 walleye boat.
Wow.
And I did not think I was going to get back to Clinton, Ohio. So the second time was probably 5-6 years ago, fishing down in 10K. Weather changed, those front days where the air temperature drops, you get that cool breeze coming in, and you probably should have already been back at the boat ramp. My customer made a last cast and the line just exploded. And it was the very first time I've ever had that happen. I mean, I've heard tales of other captains and recreational fishermen about line just kind of hovering, when there's impending weather coming. And that was arguably the worst, fastest brewing summertime storm I've ever seen. I mean, most violent lightning. And we actually went, power pulled the boat down, got out in waist deep water and crawled into a tiny little cubby of a mangrove area. I mean, literally just sitting on top of mangrove roots to be out of the water. And it was scary. I mean, that shook me up honestly for about a week. And it can just happen that fast. Obviously the Everglades are a little bit north of us, and, weather can brew so fast over the Everglades, and we just didn't see this coming. I mean, it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't even something that was in the afternoon. Both of those shook me up pretty good.
You got me shook.
How about you? How about you? Anything?
Golly, the worst one, obviously, being my buddy and I decided that we were going to be commercial vermilion fishermen. So we took his 23-footer 40 miles offshore. We left on a Friday, thought we'd come home on a Sunday because we figured it'd take us almost all day Saturday to find the fish. We had a compass and a stopwatch. That's what we had to navigate with. And we hit the fish real early. We hit the fish Friday night, in fact, and loaded up 400 pounds of vermilions and started home and broke down 10 miles off the beach with about 28 knots of northwest wind blowing. And we got picked up a day and a half later, 80-something miles southeast of Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, my gosh.
Here's all you need to know. I was so scared that for over 24 hours I didn't talk. Does that tell you anything?
It does. That resonates with me. That makes my two not very significant. That is not, you're lucky. I mean, a lot of people don't come home from that.
Buddy, I tell you right now, that happens to you, you will have a pile of safety equipment on your boat when you get your own boat, I promise you.
What's that life raft you buy every year?
Let me tell you something, Cap. If you see a flare from where you are up in Northeast Florida, it's me. I need you to come running. I got one they can see from the space station, Bubba.
Well, I'm glad it all worked out.
It all worked out perfect, Steve. I had to go back to the water the next week or I might have never gone back.
Yeah, there's truth to that.
Thanks so much for the report, Steve. We appreciate it. Steve, of course, is brought to you each and every week by Phoenix Rods. Phoenix Rods offers nearly 400 different models of rods for every species of fish. They're known for their innovative design. They've got the best components and proprietary blanks. Phoenix Rods is the choice of passionate fishermen who take their fishing rods seriously. The M1 Inshore lineup has you covered from snook to redfish to tarpon with 16 different models for your backcountry application. The Black Diamond East Coast Series offered 12 different models for the offshore fishermen that are specifically designed for the Florida offshore angler. Check them out today at www.phoenixrods.com. That's PHENIX rods.com, or visit your local dealer here in Florida. Thank you, Captain Steve Dahl.
Take care, Rick. Have a good week.
Let's stop by the Southwest section and talk to Greg Stamper. Greg, are we there?
I am right here, Rick.
I'm glad to be talking to you. I had a tough time getting a hold of you today, and it was all my fault.
It's all right. I know you've been busy. I know you've got a lot going on. So it's all good. But we all do.
You know, I would never brag or be immodest or drop a name. I would never say I've spent the last 2 days fishing with Robert Trossett out of Key West, and come on now. We didn't catch 100 cobia. It was probably only 60 or 70. And the biggest mangrove was, maybe was 19 pounds.
You're being very modest.
I knew you wanted to know, so I thought I would tell you. That's all I'm doing. Tell me what's going on in Southwest Florida, Cap.
Man, that's hard to follow up. All right. So, since you started with the offshore stuff on your own, there were several days and evenings, night trips that were able to be ran. We've had some pretty good weather in our neck of the woods. And although we haven't had any 19-pound mangrove snappers,
muttons, keep it straight.
We have had quite a few 6 and 7 pounders, along with some really fat yellowtail that were 4 and 5 pounds.
Ooh.
Some mutton snappers. And to be completely straight up, you can go out there right now and catch as many porgies as you want. So those guys that have been running out there have been doing very well. And the guys who are going out a little bit deeper, getting out to about 110 or so, are definitely doing well on the red groupers.
What porgy is that?
We have joltheads, and then we have little silver ones, the little smaller ones. But the joltheads are the big boys that are going to be those big fish that are going to be upwards of 10 to 15 pounds if you got a really big one. Yeah. But most of them are going to be smaller. They're going to be maybe 4 or 5 is normal. And then if you get a really big one, it's 10 to 15.
Greg, I'm going to tell you, I will eat a jolthead porgy faster than you can turn around twice.
No, I'm right there with you. No, there's no doubt about that. And I heard you mention cobia earlier, which is kind of funny because there's been quite a few cobia showing up here and there in our neck of the woods as well. It's been a little bit weird, and the tides that we had on this waning moon this week really gave us some extended periods of slack tide, if you want to put it like that.
Right.
I mean, we had days where the water didn't move more than an inch or two over 4 hours. You East Coast guys have it so easy. It just kind of goes up, down, and you can just kind of play it like there's no slack tide in your world. But over here on the West Coast, we actually have to pay attention to that. So it did cause for some trouble sometimes in both the nearshore stuff and certainly in the back bays when we got into those periods of extended slack tides. Luckily, those are starting to wane away, and it's going to get better and better. This next week's going to be fantastic.
Greg, let me tell you something. In my house, we've got right at 6 feet of tide. That's nothing to laugh at.
Yeah, we got like 3.
Yeah, you don't want my tide, I promise you.
If you take a 3-foot tide and you give it where it only comes up a foot and then it goes only an inch or 2 up over 5 hours, and then it continues to come in, you got a long period of tough fishing. And that's kind of what we're going through this week. But to move it into the back bay, if you fished when it wasn't during those times, the fishing was quite good. We caught a lot of redfish this week. We've caught some big ones on those good moving water tides. If you were out there when that water was slacking like that or really slow or just not moving, the bite wasn't very good. But I'm excited to say we caught more pompano this week.
Good.
We caught a lot of other weird things. Like I got a nice little red grouper in the back bay this week, which is kind of neat. A bunch of little baby gag groupers And then, of course, the black drum are still playing around here. They're going to be like, I don't know, another month and a half of those, and then we'll see what happens.
Outstanding. Well, there ain't nothing wrong with that report, I can tell you right now.
No, that's all good. And then, of course, if you really want to go after some sheephead.
Hey, listen, we really appreciate it, Greg. Thanks so much. I look forward to talking to you next week, all right?
All right.
All right, we'll talk with you next week, Greg. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for Snook Stamp Charters. Greg and all of our action spotters are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, by Phoenix Rods, by Nosara, Paradise Rentals, and by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat, spay, and offshore hybrid boats? You want to meet the Young family at youngboats.com. Captain Ray will be up next with more Florida Sportsman Action Spotter.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
That's right. For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with Menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built, a boat that's built for your family to enjoy for decades? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. All right, it's time to move on up the West Coast a little bit and check in with Ray Markham. Ray, how are you?
Fantastic. Let the pollen stop falling out of the trees and I'll be perfect.
Let me tell you what that pollen means, Cap. That pollen means springtime is coming, and Ricky's going to be catching fish pretty soon. So what's going on down there?
Well, spring has definitely sprung. Between the pollen and everything else that's going on, we've got bait fish galore that have just moved into the Tampa Bay area in a huge onslaught. The guys fishing near shore and offshore, they're catching wads of kingfish, they're catching Spanish mackerel, and everything that basically is here in March is here now. I know we have kingfish tournaments that are set for April, but I'm beginning to wonder if these tournaments are going to be or should have been run a little bit early this year. And it's also making me wonder about my tarpon season that's coming up. Everything else on the inside is doing pretty well in most areas. Still seeing some improvement from Sarasota on south with trout, redfish, snook. They're slow to come back on the redfish and snook, but the trout's doing okay. Other areas to the north of that, it's gangbusters. There's guys catching trout that are averaging 17, 18 inches from Dunedin North, and we're just slamming lots of big redfish in Tampa Bay right now.
Yeah, that's hard to beat, but you're right, Ray, in what you said. It seems as though spring gets earlier every year, and I know we're going to have more cold. I hope we're going to have a freeze because we got some mosquitoes and no-see-ums to kill, but it certainly seems to be getting warmer and seasons start earlier, and nothing ever stays the same in nature.
Well, true. Well, the past several years, 3 or 4 years now, our winters have been pretty mild, but our summers have been brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of it doesn't seem to be letting up. I mean, our days of over 95 degrees here
in the Tampa Bay area have just been off the charts. I think we had records last year for the number of days like that. Fish seem to pay attention to that too, because when that water temperature starts going and it starts getting uncomfortable for them, they definitely go look for places to hide out of that stuff and try and find something cool.
So do I. We're alike like that. So do I. I'd much rather be somewhere cool. Sounds like it's fantastic inshore. Have you guys getting many days? Do these northeast winds wreck it for you, or is it better over on that side of the state? Have they been able to get a lot of kingfish?
They're still doing real well because our breezes here lately, I say lately, the last several days, have been relatively light compared to what they were last week. We had some days last week, we had some small craft warnings in 20s, 22, 24 miles an hour wind, and that was a little bumpy for a lot of guys, and they stayed in port. But right now, I mean, those winds last week were pretty much southeast. So if they were hugging the shore kind of to the north a little bit, they probably did all right. When we have anything out of the east here, it's benefit for the guys that are fishing near shore. The waters are flat. So inshore guys, they can still find some place to hide for the most part, particularly on the east side of Tampa Bay. It works out real well for them.
For us, the east wind is a double-edged sword. Our offshore fishing is so affected by the Gulf Stream, and if we've got an east wind, it will very often push the best of the predators, the big dolphin, the blue marlin, that type stuff, over from the other side of the Gulf Stream, even occasionally some yellowfin tuna. But it just makes it so doggone hard to get there. I mean, just because the fish are there, even in our best blue water season, it starts about 45 miles off. So, I mean, we love to see it come to bring us some fish, but man, are we happy when it lays down enough to get to them.
Yep, amen to that. Well, guys right now, they're doing real well. If they can get out to around 25, 30 miles offshore, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from 80 to 100 feet of water. I think our grouper closure is going on at 120 beyond. So, guys that are looking to go out and bag something, they're going out and getting some mangrove snapper out deep later at night. And when morning hits, if they're out there more than a 24-hour deal, they come back inside that 20-fathom break and hang in there for grouper if they want to get some red grouper.
Gotcha. All right, it seems to me like most of the people that we've talked to, the sheep's head actually slowed down a little bit this week. Have you seen the same thing?
Well, I'm getting mixed reports on that. There's still guys that are whacking them, and I'm seeing pictures almost every day here. Guys coming in upwards of 10, 20 sheep's head at a whack. So they're still hanging in there. They moved in where they're supposed to be, and when they're supposed to be here, it's just the weather isn't the same.
Right. Look for that full moon in March. I think they'll do their thing. Ray, we sure appreciate it. We look forward to talking with you next week.
All right, Cap. We'll catch you later.
Our thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report where he said they're seeing kingfish where they shouldn't be seeing them in February. It is really unusual what's going on with our water temperature. Let's chase them on up to Big Bend and find out what our buddy Captain William Toney is finding. William, are you with me?
I'm right here, downtown Homosassa, bud.
There you go. I tell you what, I drove the overseas highway from Key West to Miami this morning and then through Miami. Homosassa traffic's worse than that, isn't it?
It depends. Our three bridges we have sometimes will get backed up, especially like if you got too many people fishing off one or the golf carts are gawking at the manatees. Then, you get a little traffic jam and, people kind of get irate and sometimes ask them, please get out of the way.
Yeah, that's about the same thing. Tell me what's going on in the Big Bend fishing-wise.
Well, it's been incredible. The trout bite is just wonderful. I tell you what, our new regs yesterday, I had 4 anglers. They stopped keeping at 10 fish. They had a big family. They could have legally kept 20. They kept 10 fish between 17 and 19 inches. They kept one that was right almost at 20. And I bet you we released at least 4 fish that were 20 plus.
Wonderful.
Over the side.
Wonderful.
It is awesome. I'm seeing the results already. I can't wait another year or two. It's going to be incredible. Now, all that warm water, like you're talking about, Ray Markham down there in Tampa, we have an influx of Spanish mackerel out there like you wouldn't believe. For this time of year, we get a few sometimes, but right now, if you're anywhere out from 8 foot onward, if you got to look out. If you're throwing jigs, you're going to get cut off a lot.
How about that? What can you do? You just tie a little piece of wire on the end of your line?
Yeah, if you're targeting them, what I would suggest, use a trip with a long shank number 1/0 eagle claw hook, and use that long shank hook as your bite leader if you're targeting the Spanish mackerel, because their eyesight's so keen, and a lot of times they'll shy away from even a small strand of wire.
Yep.
Using a jig out there right now, the best thing to do, especially if you're going for trout out in the deeper depths, when you throw it, let that bait sink down toward the bottom column of the water and work it in bounces down there toward the bottom. That's where your trout are going to be anyway. But if you throw it out there and want to work it fast, up in that upper water column, you're more than likely going to get a Spanish to bite you off.
That's great advice. Hey, I want to ask you a question before we go on. You were mentioning releasing these big trout, and I find that trout are probably the most tender fish we handle. And I think we accidentally kill more trout than what we know by not knowing correct release procedures. And I see people all the time take these big fish, pull them into the boat. They bounce around on the deck a couple times. Then they pick them up by the gills. Then they take the hook out and say, see, I let him go. He's going to live. Give me a good rundown on releasing a big speckled trout.
In my boat, when I'm out and clients are keeping fish or whatever, or done keeping fish, from then on out, unless it's a really nice fish and they want to take a photo, they never come out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
I make sure that I lean over the gunnel of the boat, pair of pliers, grab the shank of the hook, and just kind of shake it real easy, and most of the time it pops out. And there is the occasion where, you get a jig head that's deep in a big one's mouth, and sometimes it does more harm than good to try to get that jig out of the fish's throat. And I feel they have a better chance of survival if you can clip that line even inside their mouth and just leave it and don't handle them. If you want a photo with one, a boga grip's a great tool, and support the belly of the fish, get it out of the water. Rule of thumb, we've been taking out the 5th grade class of all Citrus County at our Homosassa Guides Association. So the last 3 weeks, for 3 days straight, every morning we do a 2-hour trip with the kids, and we release everything. And we're catching mangrove snapper, but I tell them never hold a fish out of the water any more than you can hold your breath.
Oh, what a great piece of advice. You're exactly right.
Yep.
I like that. And somebody told me one time, and we were talking about sailfish, and I had seen a young kid, and God love him. I understand the excitement of your first sailfish, and I've seen it plenty of times and have been blessed to see it. But I have seen they want that picture so bad, and they want to pull it out of the water and hold it, and get the whole shot and all. And
Yep.
I said, that is the same thing as meeting a finisher of the Boston Marathon, greeting them at the finish line by putting a plastic bag over their head.
Exactly.
It is.
Yes.
Cap, you think about it.
Absolutely. They're exhausted, They need to be in the water. And, I've seen a lot of great photos in Florida Sportsman of a young angler or any angler over the gunnel of the boat, holding a sailfish by the tip of its bill with a great shot of that fish not even coming out of the water, and their face right there next to the face of the fish they caught. And I'm sure right after that, just let it go.
It's so funny you mentioned that. I can't get through this 2-hour broadcast without the Big Yeti cup next to me, right? And my big Yeti cup has a picture of one of my grandsons holding a bill, one of my grandsons holding the dorsal, and me between the two of them. And it is it is one of my prized possessions.
Sweet. That's, if anybody doubts it, there I am. I'm holding my fish. Look at it.
Right.
You don't have to drag that thing up in the boat for no reason.
That's exactly right.
So, same with big trout. Same way, if you're not going to keep it, don't even bring them in the boat.
You're dead on. You're always dead on. Captain William, we appreciate it so much. Thanks for the great report.
Absolutely. Y'all have a great week.
We'll talk with you next week. Captain William Toney with another Big Bend report. Now we're going to move out northwest a little bit and check in with Captain Kevin Lanier. Kevin, are you with us?
Hey, Rick, I'm with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Now, last time we talked, you were on your way to the Keys. Was that a good trip?
Oh, that was a great trip. In fact, we're on our way home right now, and we had a successful trip. Mangrove snapper, yellowtail, lobster, all your typical keys things.
Here's what I want to know. How many people do you think those Keys mangrove snapper and yellowtail have fed?
Oh, my gosh. Oh, good Lord, I wouldn't even begin to guess.
Dude, there were people eating mangrove snapper in the Keys 1,000 years ago.
That's true. That's true.
They're still there, and they still bite, and thank God for them.
I tell you what, it's a lot of fun chumming those up and getting them up in there, and you never know when the next one might be a big one, so that's cool.
Now, it's funny you mentioned that because I was doing that same thing yesterday down off of Key West. Did you have a lot of trouble with the barracuda getting your yellowtails?
No, we did not. We had a couple of barracuda circling the boat, but they didn't seem to be interested in our yellowtail.
Huh! Boy, I wish ours had been that way, but they were not. All right, so what did you hear from your home country while you were there?
Well, the home country, like we've been going here lately, the Bermuda snapper beeliners have just been red hot when guys can get out there and do them. We're getting some porgies, getting a lot of bottom fish. We're throwing back 2 red snapper for every beeliner we get to keep. So it's been the typical offshore stuff. Still no one venturing way out. I think, this that time of year where you get a little window and you want to go fishing, you go out and you try to put some meat in the freezer. But it has been productive for those guys that are getting out.
Gotcha. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. How about your inshore waters? What's going on there?
Inshore seems to have slowed down quite a bit. Last couple of guys I talked to said that where those redfish were, they're not there right now. That doesn't make a lot of sense other than maybe just movement of the schools and things like that. So we're hoping with a few days of warm weather here and everything, that will pick back up because we're supposed to get a temperature drop this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds like we got a cold front coming.
Yep, got a cold front coming and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that always triggers some fish moving around anyway.
Yeah, it seems to do that.
Mm-hmm. Because I know one thing. I know our water temperature in Northeast Florida is well above where it should be for this time of year.
Yeah, it was still hanging, up a little bit higher than normal before I left.
I see. Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see what you find out when you get back home.
This coming weekend is the Mexico Beach annual Gumbo Festival. We haven't had it since the year before Hurricane Michael hit. And I would just encourage anybody that is in the area to stop by, get them some samples of gumbo, and just help support Mexico Beach because, as you know, we're still trying to get back on our feet. And this is always a fun time, a great time. And I'm going to tell you what, there's some of the best gumbo and Brunswick stew at this thing I've ever put in my mouth. And KC Sport Fishing, we're going to have a booth, and we're going to be doing gumbo ourselves.
How far is it from Jacksonville to Mexico Beach?
It's 4.5 hours.
4.5 hours. So if I left about 2:30 on Saturday afternoon, I could get a cup of gumbo at KC Sport Fishing.
That's the best you can do at 2:30 in the afternoon is get a bowl to lick because this thing opens up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you will have never seen so many people in your life down here.
That's a great thing, Cap. That's a great thing. Now, is it Saturday and Sunday?
No, just Saturday. We just do it the one day, and it's a great occasion. And like I said, one this year being our first one since the hurricane, it's really special. So we're looking forward to that getting back to normal.
Man, oh man, oh man. I've got to play radio, man, this Saturday, but I would sure love to be there, Cap. You can believe that. It sounds outstanding. And I certainly hope all of our Action Spotter listeners will show up in Mexico Beach this weekend. Guys, if you've never lived through a hurricane hitting your property, and I have, it just takes all the support you can get from everybody you can get it from to get back on your feet. And I know that I want to see the sport fishing industry return to Mexico Beach as great as it was before the storm.
Well, the two biggest events we have had since Hurricane Michael hit Mexico Beach was our 2 fishing tournaments this past year. And the local people were shocked that the fishermen turned out, but us fishermen were not shocked a bit because all we said was we need some help, guys.
Kevin, let me tell you something, and I say this so often, and I know it gets old hearing it. I have been blessed to be in churches all my life, and I'm an active churchgoer, and I love it. If I get in trouble, call the fishermen, please.
There Amen. Amen, brother.
We can check with the church later, but first, call my fishing buddies, will you please? Because they'll get me out of it, I can tell you.
They'll fix it.
Don't you feel as blessed as I do to have spent our lives in this community?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fishing community, no matter where you're at in this country, will always step up and help a brother as quick as anybody. All they need to know is that there is a need.
That's exactly right. And I'm praying that they come pouring into Mexico Beach this Saturday. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Y'all have a good one.
Let's move on out to the other end of Florida. We've been all the way down one side, all the way up the other, and now we go out west and talk with Captain Chaz Heller. Chaz, how we doing?
Doing good, Rick.
Good deal. What's going on in the Panhandle?
Oh, it's starting to heat up a little bit. Spring's just around the corner.
Did I sleep through winter? I mean, I don't take any drugs, Chaz. I mean, did I trip out or something? I mean, what's going on?
No, I don't know, but spring will definitely be a welcome sight. That's for sure.
I just don't feel like we had any winter. Did you ever get cold?
It got a little bit, but it wasn't quite what we've had the last few years. That's for sure.
Yep. Tell me about your fishing.
Fishing's been pretty good. Starting to get better and better. It'll only continue to do so. We've got trout and redfish in the canals and creeks and bayous, and it's good one day and maybe not so good the next day, but there's definitely a lot to fish around.
Uh-huh.
On the beach is probably what everybody's most excited about. A lot of whiting coming through and a few pompanos starting to show up. Definitely want to look for that clean water and fish set rigs with peeled shrimp.
Chaz Heller, what are pompano doing there in February?
I don't know. It's a little early, but I don't know if there was a month that we really didn't see them this year.
Right.
They kind of trickled out, and looks like they're going to start trickling back in here anytime. So as long as we don't get a ton of rainwater and make a lot of the beach real dirty, it should just continue to get better and better. Everybody's getting real antsy for sheep's head bite to start getting good with them spawning. Still a little bit early, but it'll start happening here real soon.
Chaz, it seemed to me like 2 weeks ago, sheep's head was the fish of the week. Everybody was catching them. I think that was on the February moon. Will your next big bite probably be the March moon?
Probably.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It'll probably be late February, early March.
Gotcha.
But it should be really good, at least in our region.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Have you heard anything from offshore?
Offshore fishing's been pretty decent, especially with the tuna bite. I know the lumps of, that quick run to the lump, which, is quick nowadays, but still a 75, 80-mile run. Tuna's been great, in closer, bottom fishing-wise, vermilion snapper, and, of course, right now is when all the grouper are going to bite because we're in that federal closure between February and March, but just keep plugging away. It won't be long before they open back up.
Yep, they know when the seasons are. There's no doubt. They know when you got to throw them back. I can hear them now. Hey, I just wanted to show you what I look like. I'm not going to bite next month again when the season opens.
Yeah, and I'll be somewhere totally different.
Let me ask you a question before we wrap up this week's podcast. How many years you been fishing in the ocean?
Oh, my whole life, almost 40, I guess.
You ever been scared?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
For sure.
Yeah, give me a good one.
We had a bilge pump go out and a hose that cracked from the pump on the through hole to the live well on the same exact day. And I swear, still to this day, given everything I know, I thought the bottom of the boat had a crack or a hole in it.
Right.
Because we just kept taking on water over and over. And the secondary pump midship was pumping, but it just never really caught up. We ended up having to turn around and come home once we noticed what was going on. And it was a close call. That boat was definitely full of water. And it just goes to show it doesn't matter how many days you check it. It could be tomorrow that it goes out. You got to check it every time.
Yeah, let me tell you something, Chaz. And that's a really good point that I haven't brought up often enough. Today's boats are so good and your compartments are sealed so well that none of us really check our bilge pump very often because they're always dry.
Yep.
So I'm sure that I've gone weeks without knowing whether my bilge pump was working that day or not. And that's the wrong thing. But here's the real lesson to me. And I can promise you, I know this story didn't get told to me. I know this to be true. If I stepped on the nicest Holland America cruise line ship to take a trip tomorrow, you know what I'd have with me?
Like that.
A 5-gallon bucket. All right.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Yeah, because it always works.
Because there ain't never been a bilge pump worked as good as a scared man with a 5-gallon bucket.
That is true. I mean, I've been on a boat where we've used it. You always got to be ready.
I think we all have. I think if we've been at sea long enough, we've all experienced trying to get the water out of a boat with a 5-gallon bucket. It ain't fun. I promise you. Yep. Go be a fisherman, they said. It'll be fun, they said.
Yeah, exactly.
Till it's 2 a.m. and you're bailing with a 5-gallon bucket. Yeah, that's not so good.
It's only a matter of time for everybody. There's always going to be a tough challenge to go through on the water, and it only takes so many days of being out there before you see something pretty crazy.
But you know what? It can't be a great adventure without a little bit of adversity, can it?
That's right.
Yeah, if you don't come to the end of your fishing career and you've got a story about being scared, you didn't have much of a career. You didn't get the full effect.
No, you didn't do it right.
Yeah, that's right. Chaz, as always, we appreciate it, Cap. We look forward to talking with you next week.
Yes, sir.
All right, buddy. Take care. Well, Chaz puts a wrap on our trip around the state this week. Of course, we started in Nosara with Craig Sutton bringing us a great report from Nosara Paradise Rental. That's a fantasy place. Golly, they catch sailfish and marlin 3-4 miles off the beach. He said last year and the whole year they lost 2 days to weather. Come on, that ain't fair. Not if you have to put up with the weather we do here in Florida. But Captain David Voorhees reported that the Barracuda have moved in offshore and they are chewing him up. Jim Ross had some great lessons for us today on small drum and how not to get too close to them or they will mess you up. Jonathan Earhart says the cobia are in full all-on mode in Stuart, Florida. They're catching limits and then heading out looking for mahi. Alan Sherman had a good report. Not great fishing. Said the kingfishing's been pretty good. They're catching a lot of fish in Flamingo, going through a lot of baits, but not outstanding offshore fishing. Juan Garcia seems like he's always got fish biting in Alamorado, where they are doing very well on the inshore, and of course catching some tuna and mahi offshore. Coming around, Greg Stamper and Steve Dahl both talked about the fish that they're catching. They're seeing a lot of grouper offshore, of course the grouper being closed, and they are catching some fish inshore. But interestingly enough, if you'll notice, last week everybody was raving about sheepshead. This week, nobody's raving about sheepshead. Why is that? Well, that's because of the moon. The sheepshead spawn on the moon, and it's not on the right cycle right now, so sheepshead fishing hadn't been very good. Ray Markham's excited about the amount of Spanish mackerel they've got in their area, and they're catching kingfish in February, which is unusual. William Toney gave us a great lesson on releasing speckled trout without taking them out of the water. They're very, very fragile fish. You don't want to mess with them too very much. Kevin Lanier and Chaz Heller both talked great about their trout fishing and their redfish fishing. Chaz says they're still catching tuna out at the lump when they can get a calm day to do it. So it's been a busy week in Florida. I know we've enjoyed it. Gosh, I hope you have. If you have, please go on Apple Podcasts. Go wherever you get your podcast from and rate us and tell us how we're doing and leave us suggestions. Leave us a message. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, by Phoenix Rods, by Nosara Paradise Rentals, and by Young Boats. You want the finest in flats, bay, and offshore hybrid boats? Check out youngboats.com. We'll see you next week. I'm Captain Rick Riles saying so long.